Night, Mr. Chris Sarandon, Amanda Burns, William Ragsdale, and Stephen Jeffries. The standing room only here.
Sorry we're late. It was Bill's fault.
Hello?
So I just want to start off with a question. I want to throw it open to the crowd. I want to ask basically each of you going down the line how Fright Night came about. I mean, obviously, Chris, you had worked with Tom. No, at this point you had not worked with Tom before. That was Child's Play. So how did it come for you?
I had a dream one night that I was in a movie. No. I got sent the script to Fright Night, and at the time I was a very popular classical actor. This is a joke. No. Anyway, I got the script, and the front page said Fright Night and big vampire things and all that stuff, and I thought I can't do a vampire movie because I'm a classical actor. And so, and I picked up the script and I read it, and I went, Jesus Christ, this is good. This is really good. And so I went to California and I met with Tom and Herb Jaffe, the producer, and Tom Holland literally described the entire movie shot to shot to me. He said, okay, here's how it's opened. I open with this, and then I go to this, then I go to this shot, and then this happens, and I go to this shot. And an hour and a half later, I was transfixed. And I said, where do I sign? Let's do this movie. And that was how I got involved.
I wasn't sent the script. No, I mean, I went through the audition process, which is you get submitted to the casting director, and this was a lovely woman named Jackie Birch, and then I did okay, I guess, on my first reading, and then I got called back and called back again. And what was interesting for me was I was sitting in the auditions in a room full of 16 and 17-year-old girls, and I was 26 when I made Fright Night. And I'm looking around going, I don't buy it. I don't buy me sitting here. But because the character was so wonderfully drawn, because the arc of Amy's journey within the film was so unique, that's why it became a good fit for me with the part. And so I was just thrilled to get a call to have an audition period. And of course, when I read the script as well, it's just wonderfully rich. And I'm a firm believer that if it's not on the page, in the writing, then no matter how many bells and whistles and special effects or whatever you put in it, it's not gonna work. And we were so fortunate to have such a full experience, such a full realization of not only the horror genre aspect, but the humanity of the characters, and no matter what stage of horror they were going through. So that's my story. I'm sticking with it.
That's good. I was living in San Francisco, and I just finished acting school, and I had met the casting woman Jackie Birch on another project, and I was going to LA for something. I can't remember what, but I had phoned her and said, I'm coming to LA.
To have your prostate removed.
Yeah, that's what it was. Again. So I called her and I said, let's go to lunch or something, because I knew that's what you were supposed to do. And she said, no, but come by, and there's this thing I'm doing that you might be right for. And so I came down and I read the script and went in and met with Tom for the first time, the director. And it seemed to go well, and then I went back to San Francisco, went back to work, and I ended up, they called me back about 3 times, I think, and I had to drive back down, and eventually they got the word that it was a go.
Yeah, I was actually working with Amanda doing Fraternity Vacation in Palm Springs, and I got the script. And you know, when I was doing acting, it's like you just receive all of these scripts, you know, constantly, and you know, you're forced to read them, and most of them you really have to ingest chemicals to be able to get through them, and they're so bad. But I read this one, and it really was different, like Chris said. You know, it's like reading a good novel. The characters suck you in, and you really empathize with them. And I didn't quite know what part. My agent didn't clarify which role that I was up for, and I
Amy.
assumed I assumed it was Charlie. You know, the straight kind of normal kid. That was the kind of parts that I had been playing up to that point, but. And then she said, no, you're up for the part of Evelette, the friend, and you know, I'm not really an extrovert type person like this guy, but it, you know, presented a challenge, which is always a good thing, and yeah, that's it.
Cool. Well, let's get a couple of questions here from the audience. We have right here in the front row here.
Chris, what was it like playing the vampire? I think that you played the vampire
Yeah, he's a scary dude.
Very scary, yes, that's right. I found my inner vampire. What was it like? It was fun because you're not, I mean, you're sort of asking the question in terms of how do you immerse yourself in vampiredom and how do you play that kind of role. But essentially, as an actor, what you're doing is you're working with a group of other people, you're collaborating with them and the director, and you're coming up with a sort of conception of a character, but also how that character functions with the other characters in the script. So it's a very collaborative process, and this particular collaborative process was tremendously fun, because this was a great group of people, and also, for me, I was a little older than most everybody. And it was energizing to be working with a lot of really talented younger people, except for Roddy McDowell, who was older. Roddy was closer to my age at the time. Older than I think.
Yes.
Yeah. So it was fun, and also my kind of, in my head, I had read, for instance, I'd read all the Anne Rice novels, which I really liked a lot. I had seen some of the great old vampire movies, The Vampire, the Carl Dreyer. I'd seen Nosferatu, which is, if you've never seen it, is an extraordinary film. And Tom Holland very much had the point of view that he felt that the genre had kind of died. That because a lot of people felt that it had played itself out, and that now people were making spoofs of vampire movies. Love at First Bite was one of them. There were maybe a couple of others. And that he wanted to revive it in a way that updated it on the one hand, but that paid tribute to the old movies. So for instance, the makeup at the end for Jerry Dandridge is the Nosferatu makeup. Basically, it looks very much like the makeup in the original Nosferatu film. And all of that was sort of seeped in. You know, that just kind of and informed what I was doing. Plus, Tom was very much, I think with all of us, and I mean, I can speak for myself, but I think we all felt this way, that he was very much hands-on. Tom used to be an actor, and he was we all got together before the movie started. We rehearsed. We did biographies of each of the characters, each of us did. On the set, Tom would constantly say, let's do one again, and this time, go this way, try this. And that was of a tremendous help to me, personally, because actors are always looking for guidance. Which way do I go? Or do I just fly and see what happens? That's a long-winded answer.
So good. It was fun.
It was fun.
Yeah.
In the very back there.
This one's for Amanda. I don't know if you know why Tom did this, but I was always curious at the end of the movie, Charlie comes and rescues you, and you're saying, Charlie, and you turn around, you got this huge smiley face from hell mouth. What was the reason behind it? I think it was just as gigantic, like it could have swallowed Charlie. So you know why you made the mouth so
Well, actually, it was not a pre-planned moment in the film. So this was one of the exceptions that Tom had not storyboarded and worked out. We got to that point and he realized he really needed some punctuation for that moment. And yeah, it was a moment of pure shock. And so, and this is no CGI, this is so old school, brilliant, hands-on craft in terms of the makeup and the prosthetics and the special effects. So it was about 24-hour turnaround from the time that Tom decided he needed that moment and that horrific face, because you know I'd been gradually, somehow my hair went from brown to red, my eyes changed color 3 times, my fangs kept growing. It was marvelous and fantastical. So they molded my face and built a prosthetic and then built these dentures, and this creature came to be. But you'll notice, and I've talked with some of you about this, it's only on screen for that long because I couldn't close my mouth, because it's such a fixed, shark. Tom has even used that word, shark. He wanted a shark mouth, so maybe that's even more direct answer for your question, that it was just horrific, grotesque, intense, and the lovely moment is that you won't see it before he does. And that's really what grabs you. So it could not hang on screen for longer than a beat or two, because then it goes comedic. You know, if you look at it, it's you know, like weird. It loses that intense, horrific effect. But I think it was a great, valuable moment.
Great punctuation too, because right before that, you guys had this nice little Victorian, you know, sort of romantic scene, you know, up in the bedroom and stuff, where you're transforming.
What am I? Yes.
And you know, you sort of think she's gonna, you know, go along those lines to, you know, she's gonna gradually transform.
Well, then I was a vamp.
Voluptuous vamp.
Yes, yeah, I mean, and that was that moment, that was that sort of Mike Cadney Turner voice, that moment of trying to seduce him, but it wasn't for good purposes. You know, he was a threat to now the one that I was engaged with.
Didn't you go right before that reveal? Was the whimpering, you said you were going to protect me, Charlie?
Yeah, well, that's what this gentleman said. So I go from the vamp, then you throw up a cross or something, you're not buying it. So that's when I duck down and go into that little Amy voice. Charlie.
Vulnerable.
And Amanda alludes to something that was also designed by Tom into the transformation of her character, which was that she gradually changed physically within scenes.
Oh yeah,
in the dance scene.
Yeah.
You know, there are times when she'll turn and spin and suddenly she's got a different hairdo.
Yeah, got rid of the bows.
Yeah, and that's all, you know, it's not something that calls attention to itself, but it's meant to show the transformation of the character.
Yeah. And it really, it was a fantastical aspect, because you can't apply exact reason as to what is happening to me physically, but it's very psychological, and that was also part of what was so alluring about Jerry Dandridge and the way Chris portrayed the character, as well as the relationship with Stephen's character. It's deeply psychological.
I have a question about, actually I would like to ask both Chris and Stephen about your makeup experiences on the film, because the key points, there's a lot. No, I mean, you're under a very lot. Not only what the process was like, but how it both maybe helped or hindered your performances. Did it help in any way to try to act underneath all that?
Oh my God, of course. Yeah, the guys that did the makeup on this film were just, I mean, you know, you can't get any better. You know, and I have like no patience, so it's, you're sitting in this chair and these guys are putting their fingers everywhere, and for hours upon hours. And but the thing is, they were so incredibly into it. I mean, they were really, really good. And and I could see, the progression as they were putting the hairs on and the lines and everything, whatever. But it wasn't the most comfortable situations, but knowing that these guys are really so talented, and when you see the final product, it's you're just you become what they've stuck on you basically, and I totally trusted these guys, and it wasn't all that fun, but once you have everything on, and especially once you see the finished product, it really is amazing. It was overall a pretty fun process, I would say.
No CGI, by the way. None. Everything. I think there were a couple of process shots when Billy is melting. Those were process shots in the sense that it wasn't done on the computer. It was done literally camera, cut away, cut back, cut away, cut back. And my makeup it was the final makeup that was the big one. And I don't know, how long did yours take, Stephen?
It was something like 16 hours.
Yeah.
I mean, it was inhumane.
Yeah. Mine was.
Literally.
And there was a period of, I think it was something like a week and a half, 2 weeks, where we were shooting that last sequence, where I was in the chair for 8 hours every day, from 4 o'clock in the morning until noon. And then I'd go to work. And the guys would literally, now, even if they're doing prosthesis, the prosthesis are generally kind of big pieces that they put on you, and they put an entire face on you. And it's like Billy Crystal in Princess Bride. That's a sort of one piece, but then it was added onto, etc. This was piece by piece by piece, layer upon layer upon layer of latex, then painting, then hair, ears, you name it. And in fact, I got so sort of zoned out while they were doing that. I asked them, because I come from the theater and I'm used to doing my own makeup. Billy, you guys, the same thing. That I said, let me do some of the makeup. So they let me do my hands while they were doing my face, so that it wasn't so excruciatingly boring. And also the guys I called them gonzo makeup guys. I'd walk into the makeup trailer at 4 o'clock in the morning, and Kenny Diaz, he would be sleeping in like a cubby. Remember that? Up above. And I'd look around and there was nobody in the makeup trailer, and I'd been called and I pissed off because the makeup guys weren't. And I said, Kenny, you here? And suddenly I'd hear, hey man, let's go, hey, let's get fired up, hey, come on, let's go, hey, 4 o'clock in the morning. Oh, Jesus. Anyway, fine.
We're right here in the front row.
Are you allowed to take a lunch break? Or do you
You just sort of eat as you go. I mean, you can't. Yeah, I was eating a lot through a straw.
It was the bathroom breaks that were tough.
Oh, yeah. Well, I had these fingers. And there was one particular wardrobe guy who kept asking if I'd like some assistance going to the bathroom. I turned down, I said, no, just give me the coat hanger. I'll be fine.
So there was another gentleman here who raised his hand. I'm sorry.
That's one for Chris. We played a lot of iconic characters. Jerry, this one, with Jack Skellington, God Kills Charles Lee Ray, Humperdinck from Princess Bride. Each movie has like huge followings of their own. Which one is like your favorite character?
Not really. Don't really have a favorite. They were all fun in one way or another, or interesting, or no. I'm sorry. Very dull answer, but I don't really have a favorite.
The aisle on the right here. Yeah, you.
Oh, thank you. Yes, question for really anybody. Has there been any talk about doing a prequel, like the backstory of Jerry, how he became a vampire, maybe the story of the love affair with the girl in the picture at the house that looks like Amy? Has there been any talks about that? And what's your thought about doing a prequel as long as Jar Jar Binks isn't in it?
Never heard of one.
No, but I actually
Great
never
idea.
even heard of that idea, Dale.
So talk to Tom Holland.
Yeah, give him a call.
Yeah,
No, it's
never-
very interesting because there was this backstory, and that was just barely hinted at, really, but it was enough to understand his motivation and his connection with Amy. Yeah, it's a good idea.
And also one of the examples of despite the fact that the script was the script, I mean, we didn't do a lot of changes in terms of the actual words in the script, but if you had an idea and you presented Tom with it, he would incorporate it if he thought it was a great idea, which he did, the portrait thing, of the portrait of Amy Bean.
The fruit, tell him the fruit story.
Well, as I
Because it's
said,
very effective and there's a lot in it.
yeah, we all had biographies, character biographies, and I'm trying to figure out how the hell do I come up with a biography of a guy who's 1,000 years old? It's going to be very long, first of all. But also, what are the specifics and where did you come from? And I came up with a lot of that stuff, and then I thought, I should find out about bats. So I started researching bats, because maybe somewhere along the genetic line, that's where the vampirism started. And I discovered that 90% of the bats in the world are not vampire bats, they're fruit bats. And so I thought, well, wouldn't it be interesting if Jerry had some fruit bat in his genetic code somewhere and he craved fruit all the time? And I went to Tom with this idea and he said, that's great, I love that, let's do that. So we just put it in wherever we could. Jerry eating fruit, the apple thing. And Charlie's lurking in the bushes. I thought about having the apple, and then Tom came up with the idea of my throwing the apple and it rolling up to him and there being this gash of a bite, you know. So that's collaborative movie making at its best, I hope.
I'll take a question back there, in the very back. Yeah, you said, Ray, sure, all right.
Two things. One, I just wanted to thank all of you for being part of such a treasure of a movie. I mean, it's just something that we've watched for the last 30 years. One question I had for all of you was, you mentioned Roddy McDowall. How was it working with him? He was such an icon back in the early days of horror and sci-fi. How was it working with Roddy McDowall?
For me, it was great. I mean, I grew up on Planet of the Apes and I grew up on Night Gallery, you know, so I was that prime generation for that stuff, and you know, and it was a thrill. I really didn't know what to expect, but was very pleasantly surprised that he was just a great, generous, down-to-earth, you know, funny, fun-loving, but just probably the most informed person about film that I had ever met and could imagine working with. And he was generous with it. You know, there was no somebody go knock on, you know, Roddy's trailer. I mean, you know, he was there and he was having fun. And he actually, this was the, you know, mid-'80s, and he had video camera equipment that he would bring to the set, and he would make videos, his own videos of us behind the scenes and all that stuff. And, you know, because he was enjoying it as well. He was making his own memories.
And he was a renowned photographer as well, Rob.
Yep.
And was taking pictures a lot, and he would send, also a great friend, in that if you were somewhere, he was somewhere in the world, in Czechoslovakia, and it was your birthday, you'd get a birthday card from Rob.
Did he take pictures of all you guys and give you like a copy of it?
No.
I was watching on Get TV. They have the Judy Garland show sometimes, and she was, you know, she's behind her chest thing from her show, and she says, oh, but she's pulling out memories and stuff, and she said, oh, this is a photo from Roddy McDowall. And I'm like, oh, cool. And I was thinking, I wonder if he, I mean, he never took a picture of me, which would have been great.
Yeah.
But I was just wondering.
Well, that you know of,
Yeah.
may have taken stuff. A lot of his stuff when he died, it kind of vanished, you know, and a lot of his photography.
He had a huge collection of films as well.
Is that a college? Isn't it at a university? Did I make that up?
Yes.
Sounds good.
It's wonderful that the memory of his, you know, that other side of him is, you know, really presenting itself today still. And
Well, he was a walking archive. I mean, he'd been in Hollywood since 1939, or probably 38, when he came to make How Green Was My Valley. But he was just so unpretentious. I probably worked the least with him, but he treated me with such equanimity. He was so lovely and humble. And one of the things I remember being so struck by is that he had, and he verbalized this, an awareness that his career was in some way like Peter Vincent, in that he knew all the A-list people in Hollywood. He was dear friends with them. His career was never in that, but so he had this real understanding of this character, and I think that it's evident. You know, he's just so lovely in the role, but so genuine.
I think one more question from this side over here, around the end of the aisle there. Sir. You sir.
Awesome, me? Cool. Hey, how's it going? I don't know if he's pointing somebody back there, I'm tired. Hey guys, how's it going? Alright, cool. The movie is such an unparalleled masterpiece, right? Like you said, it's very meta, right? It's just a mash of so many different genres that's peppered out in between. And to that, the nightclub scene is one of the best scenes in horror history, actually cinema history. And it's so important to the second act of the film. Can you guys talk about, I know you came at the very end, at the very end of the scene, Stephen. Can you guys talk about filming the nightclub scene and what went into that, to work with Tom? The nightclub scene, whenever, yeah.
Days. I mean, we were downtown Los Angeles in just the grimiest part of the city. It was coming up towards Christmas time, wasn't it? It was.
Yep,
we'd been shooting for a while. It really took a lot of time. There were a lot of moments built into that scene. Not only the intimacy here and that developing, the level of terror, and then the crowds, the stairwell. So there were just a lot of involved moments that Tom took his time with.
You had a choreographer
yes,
to work with
yes.
on the dance scene.
And we improvised a little.
Yeah.
The line wasn't improvised, right?
The what?
Your line, Jerry,
No,
don't lose your temper.
No, not lines improvised,
Right.
just move.
Such a magical line.
It was just kind of moment to moment work.
Awesome.
And again, it's the beginning of when Jerry captures Amy, in a very sort of psychological spell, fantastical way. What is that, and how does it manifest? And so Tom built these moments, and I have to say the dance in front of the mirror I've never done anything like that before or since. But everything has this little effective, adds another texture to what's happening. And to me, for a film that goes very deeply committed into the horror genre, it never loses its authenticity, because I think the characters were really, and being able to work with these actors, you just work moment to moment with each other, and it was real.
Thank you.
We'll take a question from over here on the side of the room, in the back here. Yeah.
Next month, I believe, You're So Cool Rooster, the documentary of Fright Night comes out. What was your experience with that from UK producer, Gary Smart?
I didn't know it comes out next month. That's cool.
It's actually out.
Really cool.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
They don't tell us anything.
I did my interview in a kind of funky hotel on the east side of Manhattan one day for about 3 or 4 hours. It was great. It was great fun. These guys are obviously big aficionados and fans of the movie, and actually appreciate the fact that they've done this work, because the studio never did. They didn't do the making of, they didn't do any commemorative, they've done commemoratives, but essentially they're just updated or Blu-rays or whatever, but they've never done, we had to do a guerrilla commentary once that Tom put together in somebody's studio, where we sat and talked about the movie as the movie was running, that played where?
The Icons of Fright thing that you did?
Yeah,
You mean when they had they had a new print? They had made a new print that played at the Fine Arts, but
Yeah.
someplace in LA.
Right, and we did a commentary for that, but the studios never incorporated that into an actual disc of the movie.
The trailer looks pretty good. It was the first time I was invited to Tom's house on Mulholland Drive. So that was kind of cool. I scored an invitation to Tom's house to do the interview there. And it was really wonderful because he has so much memorabilia.
Oh, really?
Oh my gosh, he's got huge, not only from Fright Night, but just the masks.
Psycho and Chucky and all that.
Yeah. And so I'm hopeful. Again, they were very in earnest in terms of how they approached it, and I think they found and unearthed so many people, both in front of and behind the camera, not only for the original, but for the sequel. And so I'm looking forward to it. So
Yeah, they're talking to people like Steve Johnson, I think, and
lots of crew.
people who were very instrumental in making the movie. I mean, we're just, we're the palpable sort of version of what the movie, the people who put the movie together. The cinematographer Jen Kieser, who was there all the time and wonderful. Brad Fidel, who did the soundtrack. The people who were the music supervisors who put together that great album. I think the album's fabulous.
We've been seeing each other since like '09 at these conventions and things, but there are people in the documentary I haven't seen since 1985. I haven't seen since some I might even never met.
Any questions from the back portion of the room back there? Anything here? Oh, back there, in the very back, sir, yes.
For Stephen, I was curious, earlier you said that when you first read the script, there was a bit of a disconnect between you and the character that you realized that you were going to play. And while the prosthetics may help a bit, how did you craft some of the mannerisms and ways of speaking that made you let such an icon?
Well, Tom helped me a lot with that because I was kind of scared when I first read it and I was offered the part. I was like, how am I going to do this? Because I don't think, at least, that the character is a lot like me in most respects. But and as I went along, Tom would definitely give me really good feedback, and he knew what the character was all about. So it really was a collaboration with him, the guy that directed it and wrote the part. He told me what to do and I did it. But yeah, pretty much everything that I've done beside this, I really, when I was reading it, I was like, oh, okay, I love this part. I want to, make reality out of it. But this one was just so unlike, Evil Ed. What the hell is that? Yeah, and it was, it was kind of depressing, because this character is like, kind of ridiculed, and it was really, yeah.
But he's also in a lot of ways the outsider that all of us feel like we are at some point, particularly when we're in high school, right? That everybody always feels like that people are talking about us and that somehow we don't fit in. And that was the allure that was built into the script that Jerry had for him, which was that he said, and there's that amazing scene that Tom wrote and staged, where he basically just envelops Evil Ed and says, nobody's ever going to laugh at you anymore. You're going to be as powerful as I am, and that's something we all can identify with.
Yeah, and just trusting in the process and in the great writing and directing, that made it pretty easy because it was, he did such a great job, in the mapping out of the actual character and the script and everyone involved, the makeup and the actors and.
Another question, right here in the middle.
How did you guys feel about the remake?
Chris, you made an
Somebody was
appearance
great
in it.
in it. There was somebody really great.
I've defended it because I think that, first of all, it's very difficult. They never said they were doing a remake. They always said they were trying to reimagine it because from the director through Colin Farrell, when I was on the set, Colin came to me and he was nervous. and he basically said, I hope we can do justice to this, because this is a movie that I've loved since I was a kid. I've watched it 100 times. My sister and I would watch it at night all the time. We love it so much. He brought me an amazing blah, blah, blah. I mean, he couldn't have been more deferential in terms of his love of the movie. Craig Gillespie, who directed it, the same thing. But at the same time, they knew that they couldn't remake it in the sense that they were making the same thing over again. They had to somehow think of it in a different way. And I think they did a decent job. I know that there are a lot of people, probably many of you in this room, who feel that it was a travesty in some way, shape, or form.
No way.
I think they did a pretty good job. Is it the original? No, but it shouldn't have been. It wasn't meant to be. That's my feeling about it.
We should have you. Because reimagined is a great word, and I don't know that that was a part of that campaign at all.
It wasn't.
Because
Yeah,
it
I
was
think the
sold as a
studio-
remake,
yeah.
and it really is two different things. I thought as a standalone film, it was well done, and Colin is a very powerful and charismatic performer, Tony Collette, and it was very funny. I was so delighted when that happened. It was so
Well, they asked
unexpected.
me, yeah, because they asked me what I wanted to do in the movie, and I said, I want to be consumed, I want to be so that he passes the torch.
My experience was, I didn't have anything to do with the remake, but I was living in Los Angeles at the time, and because the logo was the same as our movie, you know, it was 30 years later, and I was seeing the logo, you know, my movie's logo on buses and billboards and things like that. It was just kind of surreal. It was like, you know.
Again, not the right campaign, truly.
You know, you got orange shirt right here.
Would you do us the honor of announcing Fright Night, Chris?
I try to make it a rule not to recreate something
Yeah,
that's
speaking
in
of not
people's minds, because you never can do it justice. Live with the original, just like you did with the remake. But thank you for asking.
We have time for a few more questions. Anybody else have any questions? Right, oh, back over here.
Yeah, I was wondering if this is open for anybody. Do you think Charlie Brewster's mom ever found out what happened over there? She was working nights.
Well, and you know what, that is one exception. We couldn't find, I don't think the documentary was able to locate Dorothy. And she was so wonderful. You know, it's that Shakespearean, there are no small parts, because she brought, again, stylistically, this sort of real understanding of a mom who's kind of overwhelmed, who could be that distracted, who could not really get what's going on with it, you know what I mean? And yet you just loved her. Yeah, she was terrific.
I have a question for everybody here. What has been your most memorable, or at least one that comes to mind, memorable encounter with a fan over the years in regards to the film? Anything that comes to mind?
This room.
For me, it was like when I saw it the week before it opened. I think it previewed on the Friday before, which they used to do that. Do that anymore? Where the Friday before it opens.
I think it's all about opening weekend.
Yeah, but back in the day, they would. Anyway, I saw it in Boston for the first time with my sisters, and you know, and walking out, and this had never happened to me before. You know, all these girls were coming up and screaming and saying, "Oh my God, that's Yvette," and it was just wonderful to see the effect of the movie in such a positive way.
To see the movie with an audience when it first came out, I went on 42nd Street in New York, and that was just, it was pandemonium. It was crazy. But the one experience that I remember very clearly was that I was in Los Angeles doing another picture, and I rented a house because I had small kids, family, and there was a guy there who was working on the cable because something was wrong with the cable, the TV cable. And I was there all day because I wasn't working on the film that day. And the guy didn't say a word to me all day. He was working on the cable, he's putting up this, he's doing that. And then at the end of the day, he comes up to me to sign the papers, and he hands me the papers. As I'm signing, I hear,
I'm surprised you come out in the daytime.
So we're gonna take one more question from the audience, right here on the
What kind of vampires do you like? The Twilight romance kind, or the worldly blade stuff like Wesley Snipes? You mean?
Well, like Chris, I was a fan of the Anne Rice novels, and I like our kind. Again, and I get the Twilight thing because you get more of the humanness of the monster, and that's when I was young, I was afraid of vampires. That was the one monster that terrified me, and I think it's because it was so close to being human, that aspect of it, and yeah, I'm not Team Jacob or Team whatever.
I think we're on Team Jerry here. That's right.
Nice, yeah!
Ladies and gentlemen, please give it up for our wonderful cast.